What's shaking, my friends? Welcome to day 160,000 of the pandemic. My name is Jeff Deck, and I'm here tonight to do another reading by the Fake Fireside from my book, The Pseudo-Chronicles of Mark Huntley. Now, if I were publishing this book today, would I give it a title like The Pseudo-Chronicles of Mark Huntley? Probably not. The title doesn't really tell you much, off the bat about what kind of book it is, what kind of genre it belongs to, what to expect. It's once you start reading it, of course, you immediately understand. Mark is Huntley. It's a pseudonym for the guy who's keeping this journal, and it does become a kind of chronicle. Not just because it's 600 pages long, but because it's a daily blog that he's keeping that takes place over the course of a few months and becomes kind of an epic story. But does this title, The Pseudo-Chronicles of Mark Huntley, scream supernatural thriller? No, it doesn't. I could have put Pseudo-Chronicles of Mark Huntley and then in small letters, a supernatural thriller on the cover. Maybe that would have helped. But I don't know. I've just been learning a lot about kind of market optimization since then. And I'm trying to get a little better at titling with my more recent books. Get that metadata right for all the little spiders and everything on Amazon, crawling around, picking up data, serving books to their most likely customers based on whatever algorithms they have going on behind the scenes. But this book behind me, City of Ports, that one at least, it's these portals are referred to as ports in the book series, and so that part is at least in the title. Still not quite clear from the title that that's urban fantasy, but the subtitle, the name of the series, The Shadow of a Portsmouth, clues you in that there's something a little scary, a little weird going on. So, moderately better, in the right direction, I think. And cover design does have a lot to do with giving the reader the right clues as well. I mean, this book, I had a very good designer. Demonza is the name of the company, and you see that this is going to have something spooky going on. You've got DC there. You've got this shadowy figure with the knife, so you figure maybe some kind of thriller, maybe a political thriller, but then you see the spooky hands and you think, well, maybe there's something a little more sinister going on there. But anyway, that's just a little rant I wanted to go on before starting the reading tonight. I had a very delicious chocolate sea salt stout by Lone Pine Brewing before this, so hopefully the reading won't get slurry, with any words. I was having a little issue with that during the practice reading, but let's try to enunciate and we'll see how it goes. Hello again, trying to move on. Good to see you back in the game here. So we've got an entry tonight from the book called Boys on the Road, and it's Sunday, October 3rd, 2004. I'm sitting here still exhausted from the, excessive celebration of Carrie's wedding. Much to share with you. I met someone I can't stop thinking about, and I discovered something new about myself. That sounds heartwarming, doesn't it? Quite a romantic time? Well, not quite. Hey, Mary. This is Mark Huntley reporting to you live from the ZOWC, remember, and that's not a zone bound to DC. It's bound to me. I know now that I probably can't escape it, that running would do no good. Because they're out there, too. From the far reaches of the Delmarva Peninsula to, yes, the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Now 3 of them already know me by sight thanks to my carelessness. And if they haven't been spreading the word among each other, that I can see them, you can bet your ass they are now. One day soon, someone's going to force a move, and they've got a full roster on their side, while My side of the chessboard is pretty lonely indeed. But first, a tale of the open road. I misdirected you a bit yesterday, saying that we were headed north. That was intentional, though I don't know if it did me any good. We actually struck out east for that big Florida wannabe piece of territory known as Delmarva for the 3 states that share it. A somewhat scenic drive with the bay and river towns along the way, but not a quick jaunt. For the first half, the ride east was excruciating. I think I sobered up within the first 20 minutes. In spite of my efforts to draw Joe Alessander into something resembling a conversation, he stayed planted in the land of monosyllables. Witness me trying to jog personal memories. Mark. From what Carrie said, this wedding sounds like it's going to be pretty lavish. I just hope I don't knock over anything expensive. You're married, right? Joe nods, almost imperceptibly. Mark. What was your wedding like? Joe. Long. Mark. Was it like a big ceremony? Did you have like a full band playing afterwards? The works? Doves flying through the chapel? What was your cake like? Joe. ... Mark. It was long? Joe. Long. Or how about work-related topics? Mark. So I hear you're working on a complete redesign for the Divide's website. How is that going? What kind of a template are you going by? Joe. Indecipherable sound that could mean anything. Mark. Joe. ... Or politics. Mark. Did you catch the presidential debate on Thursday? Joe. No. Mark. I think it's going to be a really tight race this time. And whatever happens, people are going to be angry. Even angrier than they got during the Florida fiasco with the hanging chads last time. I can't imagine there being such a bitter divide in this country since the Chicago riots of '68. Joe stares through the windshield at the pavement flying under the wheels. Or that final desperate gambit, the weather. Mark. You know if it's going to rain this weekend? Joe. No. Mark. It's not going to rain, or you don't know if it's going to rain? Joe. ... It seemed like the torture of silence would go on forever. Normally I don't mind some well-placed quiet. In fact, I prefer it to the inane conversation about reality shows and college football that sums up what the majority of people have to offer. But I didn't want to be swimming in my thoughts because I knew which direction they'd turn. I wanted this to be a break. I didn't even have a book to crack open, and Joe's taste in radio, all classical all the time, 89.1 FM, hadn't exactly seized my interest. All I could do was look out at the Maryland landscape, bland until we hit the Chesapeake area. Then, after we'd been in the car for about an hour and a half, we passed a sign for a rest stop, which featured, among other fine eateries, a place known as Bob's Big Boy, complete with 8-foot-tall fiberglass statue outside, a boy in checkered suspenders who was holding up a hamburger. And Joe said, without preamble, keeping his eyes fixed on the road, "Man, I hate that goddamn big boy." That startled me out of a half-doze. Huh? Gives me the fucking willies, Joe continued. Sometimes I think about the big boy, you know, the model of the big boy, and I think, well, that big boy's pretty fucking big, and he's not even full grown, he's just a boy. He's going to get bigger, and he's already got a full-grown dad, so I wonder, in proportion, how big does Bob have to be then? I just looked at him at first, trying to figure out what to say. We had finally reached a topic in which Joe showed some real interest, so I wanted to encourage him. Well, not necessarily that big. The big boy could theoretically be bigger than Bob. He's Bob's big boy. So you're saying that Bob could have 2 sons, a small boy and a big boy, both denoted according to their size. Perhaps one smaller than Bob and one freakishly larger, and the restaurant is devoted to the latter. Yes, I said. That is exactly what I'm saying. That broke the dam of the conversation, and we were able to move on to similarly vital topics during the rest of the trip. Turns out that Joe is an amateur enthusiast of the restaurant mascot. He explained to me the dark history of Grimace from McDonald's lore, and how a man named Noid once held up a Domino's pizza place with a gun, outraged at the bumbling villain in their commercials who shared his name. When we got to the church, we met up with a couple other people from the Divide who were also fortunate enough to be invited way out here. Not Dale. He and Carrie hadn't gotten along since the microwave burrito incident of '02, something I had never been willing to dig too deep into. We found seats toward the back on the bride's side of the aisle in the chapel. We'd made it with just a few minutes to spare before the procession began. I'd only been to one wedding before this one. It had been an interminable Catholic service with 4 priests involved, of which the marriage vows seemed to be only a small part. I didn't know what to expect this time. The fact that this one was Protestant was a good sign, but who knew? Windbaggery crosses all denominations. I looked around for some sign of the extravagance that Carrie had hinted at, but didn't see any. The church itself featured almost no decorations for the wedding, just some bouquets of pretty flowers up on the dais. Maybe the chocolate fountains and the doves riding on ponies would come later at the reception. I indulged myself a moment to wonder what the National Cathedral had been like the day that Lucy and Anton walked down the aisle. Their footsteps must have echoed in that huge space. She must have looked radiant under those immense chandeliers, and so many influential faces looking on, if you didn't count the theater raft that Lucy had invited. Mr. Zalt had greased a lot of cathedral-affiliated palms for the privilege, as I understood it. What a waste. Now, something happened to jerk me back to the moment. Something inopportune. My bladder screaming. I would have ignored it. I mean, I should have. But I didn't know whether I'd be able to hold out through the whole ceremony. I was afraid of the windbaggery, you know? I kept hearing Joe's monotonal long in my head. So I excused myself, climbing over my coworkers, and ran into first one hall and then another hall to make a pit stop. I started to panic until I found the right door. I wouldn't get credit for attendance if I missed the processional, would I? When I finally got to the cramped men's room, I was surprised to find someone who didn't belong there. So, 60 seconds before the processional was supposed to start, picture Mark Huntley standing frozen in the doorway, staring at the girl in what was supposed to be dude domain. She was striking, but not like the movies would have it. She had a cascade of curly black hair and brown skin that seemed to glisten in the fluorescent lights. My guess was she was multiracial, maybe black and South Asian or Asian, which was pretty accurate as it turned out. Made no never mind anyway. She was just gorgeous in that peach-colored bridesmaid dress, which gave good credit to her curves as the girl pulled with all her might on a paper towel dispenser by the sink, swearing and grinding her teeth. What in God's name was she doing? I said aloud. I didn't make it any further than that. She looked my way. Her eyes were, not striking, damn it, an astonishing hazel. Like she was lit from the inside and I was seeing that light through greenish-brown glass. She stopped yanking on the dispenser. There wasn't a hint of embarrassment on her face. Well? Well, I parroted stupidly. Well, she said, are you going to stand there like a ninny or are you going to help me get this thing open? I'll help, I said. Come here then, she commanded, and I was drawn like a magnet forward. She would have been truly intimidating if her voice had been deeper. Her raggedness gave it edge, though. Briefly, I wondered what her singing voice was like. And listen, I hope all of you appreciate the honesty here, reader, and you're not smacking yourselves about the face and neck right now out of exasperation. This is just to show you that my heart does still, in fact, beat. I turned my attention then to the problem of the paper towel dispenser with the fierce bridesmaid peering over my shoulder. Though we couldn't reach any towels through the dispenser's opening, I could see a stack of them bunched up near the top of the container, visible through the dark plastic. Why this girl needed paper towels so desperately I couldn't fathom. But now I'd committed myself. The dispenser was locked shut. The only obvious way to get the thing open was to smash the plastic cover. But I wasn't keen on the idea of destroying somebody's property, especially not if that somebody was a place of worship. Or if I had a lever to slide under the cover where it met the bottom of the dispenser, I could pop the cover off, but what? I glanced around the bathroom and then I had an idea. There's a janitor's closet I passed on the way here, I told the bridesmaid. A couple doors back down the hall. It was open. See if there's a screwdriver in there or something else long and thin and flat. She nodded and went out, returned some seconds later with a big flathead screwdriver. I worked its head under the cover and then seesawed it hard until the cover snapped up. Unfortunately, it did more than just snap up. It snapped right off and hit the floor. I'd broken it anyway. I cursed the cheap plastic while the bridesmaid just grabbed a handful of paper towels. She grinned at me. "Thanks," she said, gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and dashed out with her prize. I just stared after her, then went about my original business as fast as possible and returned to the chapel, sure that Carrie would already be walking down the aisle and that I was the worst coworker sort of friend in the world. But for some reason, she hadn't shown up yet. In fact, people were starting to get antsy for the shindig to be digging. I took my seat with Joe and Meg and Laurel, team divide. Meg shot me a reproachful look. "Hope everything came out all right. Lucky for you, you haven't missed anything." "They're behind schedule," said Laurel, consulting her watch. "Wonder why?" Suddenly I knew why. Even before the music blared to life 5 minutes later and Carrie started down the aisle on the arm of her father, her face looking raw, it wasn't hard to figure out. Carrie had suffered some last-minute attack of doubt, probably accompanied by a good cry. She turned to one of her good friends, a bridesmaid, for comfort. The bridesmaid had whisked her off to the ladies' room to talk her back to her senses and get her cleaned up, because no one wants to see a streaky wife-to-be. Problem was, the ladies' room was out of paper towels. Our faithful bridesmaid friend dives fearlessly into the men's room to look for towels. In misfortune of misfortune, the dispenser is jammed. Enter a hero, the one man who has the insight, fortitude, and determination to tackle a crisis of this magnitude. And there we are. You'll see how I squandered my heroic deed and repelled her from me. Just give me a couple hours first. It's just about time to wash down my beer with some dinner. Posted by Mark Huntley at 7:27 p.m. And we'll pick up the next entry, which continues the story of his wedding adventures, tomorrow evening. I'd like to thank all you folks for tuning in and being an excellent audience. If you liked what you heard, you can buy me a coffee or check out my books via the links in my Instagram bio, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, you can find those same links in the YouTube description. Maybe not on the very first day, but within a couple days, once I get over my laziness and update the descriptions. You can also check out the previous readings in this series as videos on my YouTube channel. So I will see you folks tomorrow evening. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and wash your hands.